You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about sports in the state of Michigan?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Stables Media, the show that provides research and statistics about all the Detroit and Michigan sports teams, whether fans like it or not, and detects, exposes, and reveals actual and hidden facts and truth that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no slappiness, no coddling, no pop culture, no conspiracy theories, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at Michigan_Truth, and like and share our verified Facebook page, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Also listen to us on Spreaker, CastBox, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts via iTunes, and Spotify, and like Stables Media on Facebook. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast does not represent or defame any of the teams it covers, nor does it represent or compete against any mainstream media in the state of Michigan. It is also not for entertainment or debating purposes. It only detects, exposes, and reveals honest, actual, and hidden truth, facts, and statistics about them. And it is for every sports fan's own good because the truth is out there. And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, primetime edition on Stables Media. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith and Frank Vasner. Ed Smith, welcome back. You were out sick last week. How do you feel?
Compared to last week, extremely better. Still some remnants I got to get over, but feeling much better. I appreciate your asking concern very much, Taylor. Right now, I am currently watching the Lakers battle the Heat in Game 1 of the NBA Finals live as we speak as of this recording. It's been a good game back and forth, but my focus and attention is more on what we're going to do for tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Frank, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing quite well, Taylor. I was happy to learn that I will be back on the field this coming Friday night, officiating once again. So I guess my crew liked me well enough. They decided to bring me back for another round. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good job.
Definitely. So before we get to this week's stories and news and the Lions-Cardinals recap, Ed, we want to give us your thoughts on the Lions-Packers game. Yeah, they got smoked. And then the second Mario and Rod story that Frank, Darren Weiss, and I went over on our show here last week. So, Ed, we found out that Mario Mpemba was officially having ties with the Ilitch family, while Rod Allen was being Rod Allen. So, Ed, just go right ahead and give us your thoughts.
Really, my thoughts in terms of reviewing the article that was has been online now for several years. It's not too surprising when you consider the blow-up and the physical altercation that these two men eventually had, because if you've been working for someone for a long enough time, it's just certain people to where if you have a camaraderie or genuine chemistry or ability to gel or get along with, it's just there. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. There have been notable instances, whether it be in multiple facets and forms of entertainment, whether it be music or movies or TV, to where if you have a well-known iconic duo, even if they have or they perform well on air, sometimes they may not always like each other off the air. Even Jeff Moss himself mentioned it in the article that you guys brought up with regards to Martin Lewis and Simon and Garfunkel, and that's just two examples. I could, list 20 if I can name them off the top of my head, but I'm sure, obviously, that's not the only two occurrences of where this type of relationship does exist. It happens anywhere and everywhere. So it's not surprising when you consider the fact that the personalities didn't mesh, and when you read the details that Moss was posting even before this article and after this article, and especially in light of the fight that they had, to say that you didn't see this coming, you would be lying to yourself. And what you mentioned about Mario having ties with the Ellis family, I could see that. I could definitely see that as well. I could see them more so, or Mario trying to attach himself onto that latch, so to speak. But we see how it worked out for him in the end, because apparently it didn't save him from keeping his job.
Right, yeah. And so Mario Mpemba, yeah, Rod Allen. Yeah, Mario Mpemba, after that chair fight, he got fired. Took a job with the Red Sox. Didn't last too long, by the way.
I wonder if he spoke with Dave Dombrowski at any point.
Right, good point, because Dave Dombrowski was also fired as general manager of the Red Sox as well, like a year or two ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and he brought them the freaking World Series.
Yeah, in 2018. Yikes. And the Yelich family still doesn't even know what's going on. They're afraid to be compared to with other teams by people like us, you know what I mean? But hey.
Well, that's what happens when you go the route and the drought that you've gone without winning a championship in baseball, amongst other things that I could really get into Chris about, but we don't have that much time to get into that tonight.
Right. The Detroit Tigers, the modern tragedy. Look at Urinating Trees video from last year, from like the end of June or something like that. So let's go ahead and compare last week's the Packers loss to the Cardinals win as we segue real quickly to the Lions' 26-23 win at the Arizona Cardinals, who are 2-0 going in. Lions scored 10 points off turnovers, 3 interceptions recorded by their secondary against Kyler Murray, one by Jeff Okudah, a 36-yard interception return. 36 yards! Wow! Almost a pick six if you ask me. Like I said on my Independent Edition episode, the latest episode, and then 268 passing yards allowed by the secondary still, who wasn't covering DeAndre Hopkins especially at all. Matthew Stafford, no interceptions thrown again, but still allowed 2 sacks. But Kenny Galladay...
That's not too bad, giving up 2 sacks all game.
No.
Yeah, but I can argue, though, that one of those was completely unnecessary near the end when they were, pardon the interruption, but the 1 sack that they gave up near the end down at the goal line or close to the goal line, that could have been really, really bad because I think it was Hawkinson, he was assigned to help block on the edge, and he completely whiffed on his rusher, and that got Stafford. It's a good thing Prater hit that field goal, otherwise we will be mentioning that missed block by Hawkinson a lot more today if they had lost.
Yeah. And then Kenny Galladay, a touchdown catch, only 57 passing yards on 6 receptions. I know he's coming off an injury.
Yeah, but hey, those, you could tell Stafford really missed him the way he kept going at him. So those 6 receptions should tell you of how much Stafford really missed having him.
Darn right. And then Marvin Jones Jr. made a key catch in the ensuing drive, setting up Prater's time-expiring game-winning field goal. And that resulted in a first down, by the way, Jones's catch. Jones was uncovered when he went off and running on the snap. And Prater was 4 for 4, by the way, in field goal attempts. Perfect, including that game winner as time expired. We've seen this type of win before by the Lions win with Prater's past game-winning field goals at the end of the game. And this was just another carbon copy of it. So we're going to turn over to Ed, and then we'll give it over to Frank. Ed, let's have at it.
Well, and first and foremost, I'm going to mention the Packers game before the Cardinals game because, we have to at least talk about that elephant in the room. I thought it was, obviously disheartening to see the lack of effort that they showed is that they seemingly gave up after the first quarter. The fact that you essentially went the rest of the game scoreless except for a garbage time touchdown to Marvin Hall in the fourth quarter speaks nothing to me. They got their behinds thoroughly kicked. Granted, Aaron Rodgers is obviously in a vengeful revenge mode tour this season, so it doesn't surprise me considering the fact that what he did against the Vikings the week before and, of course, what he did to the Lions. It didn't help matters that Desmond Trufant was out, which means essentially that Jeff Okudah, welcome to the NFL. This is your first game. Hi, you're going against Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And for some reason, the Lions, or whether it be Patricia or whoever else, they came up with this idea, let's put our rookie cornerback in massive man coverage for the majority of the game instead of helping out with zones. Now, granted, they were able to improve upon that this week with the amount of zone defense that they used against Arizona compared to against Green Bay, but still, I just disagreed with that considering the fact that Rodgers is going to go after Okudah each and every single chance and he got, and we saw that. Okudah, he looked good in some spots, but he had his struggles, which is obvious when you consider the caliber of quarterback that he's that is going to be targeting him, and it's his first career game, period. Not even preseason, because remember, there was no preseason for this season, so this was Jeff Okudah's first snaps as a member of the National Football League. So considering the opposition that he was facing and how the circumstances came about, he did the best that he could have done. Now, that still doesn't speak to the fact that the offense, they had a great start, they got 2 touchdowns, but yet they did nothing else for essentially the rest of the game. Whether it be drives stalling out, unnecessary penalties, bad mismatches, just having very lack of awareness. I was going to say keen sense, but there was no keen sense. It was a general lack of awareness being seen. And the fact that Green Bay dominated the time of possession by well over nine minutes, let you know that if you don't have the ball enough times, if you're not making your drives count, good luck trying to score points, let alone win games. So I think it was very imperative that they did much better in certain areas, in other areas this time around as compared to last week. And as we saw for this week, much better job of time possession, way better job of taking care of the ball. And like you mentioned, with Stafford only giving up 2 sacks to Stafford all game, one of those, albeit bad timing, but it was only in the fourth quarter at the end of the game. That's an improvement. It's not what you want to see. It's not your end goal, but it is a better improvement. And it doesn't surprise me also seeing the performance that Adrian Peterson has had throughout this season. You saw what he did week 1. You saw, what is that, 90-plus yards or so in the season opener against the Bears. And he had another 75 yards this week against Arizona. So he's averaging, about 4.9, almost 5 yards per carry this season. That's just AD being AD. So it doesn't surprise me that they're riding with him as, I guess they wanted him to be the mentor, so to speak, but he's so far already becoming the workhorse for the Lions. And I'm not sure that's a good or a bad thing. I think I have to wait to see that play out more before I give a more concise, cohesive opinion on that. But it is nice to see that they, for once, they got to win, most importantly, because they had not won a single game since before Stafford went down last October. So it was great to see them at least get that win for their confidence, for their psyche. Get a win on the road as well. Get a win in Arizona for once, which it seems like has always been a house of horrors. And I think there should be some positive things to look at. Because you got to remember, you're going against a team that has one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the entire game, in DeAndre Hopkins. So the fact that he went off for 10 catches, 137 yards, that shouldn't be discouraging. He's one of the best in the game. If he's going to eat, he's going to eat. The fact that they withheld their composure, still got 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions out of Kyler Murray, who, yes, he's talented. Yes, he has potential, but he's still young. And the defense thankfully took advantage of that. And Jeff Okudah, this is why you picked him, he has the awareness to go after and go for a turnover. He's going to be your ball hawk. He's going to do it. So credit to Okudah for doing that. And it gives you an insight into how he can get his growth and experience and development on the next level. That's an example of it right there. When you have those elements involved, Kenny Golladay coming back, Adrian Peterson carrying the workload, Matthew Stafford being more efficient, no turnovers, no mistakes for the most part. This was an all-around team win. Yes, you would like to see more touchdowns, finishing drives as opposed to field goals, but if you can get the points, you get the points. And the way Stafford led that drive at the end was quintessential vintage Matthew Stafford. Got his team in a position. I thought he had a good shot to get a touchdown before the aforementioned sack that I mentioned, but they still were in a good position. They took care of the ball. They handled their business. They did the right things, whether it be handing the ball off the AD or using play action, which I've mentioned once or twice that the Lions' offense is at their best, where if they can get the run established with Adrian Peterson or whomever, could be Kerryon Johnson, could be anybody else. But if you get the run established, make them respect the run at least a little bit, you can utilize Matthew Stafford more in play action. I think play action is Stafford, other than when he's in shotgun, that's Stafford at his absolute best. So it was good to see the offense perform in that regard. You still want to see more, especially with the rest of this very, very tough schedule coming up. But a win is a win. You take it whenever you can.
The way I saw Jeff Okudah's interception, by the way, he stood right in front of his opposing receiver, right in front of his man. He covered that guy perfectly and just stood right in front of it and waited for that pass. I don't even know why Kyler Murray even threw there in the first place, but that's why Jeff Okudah took advantage. It was too bad the Lions settled for yet another field goal that drive.
Yeah, but like I said, Murray's a young guy. He's young. He's good. He's got potential, but he's young. And young quarterbacks are going to be prone to make mistakes, as we saw this week. Young man had 3 interceptions. And if you are an adequate defense or an adequate defensive player, you've got to see those opportunities and take advantage of them. And that's exactly what Okudah did. I think also credit to the fact that they played more zone. Again, they played more zone defense this time around this week as compared to last week, I felt. They definitely utilized the man zone, the man coverage defense. Didn't necessarily work out when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers and you know that your defense is not necessarily a strong point in terms of getting pressure And they were also missing Desmond Trufant, as they were missing him this week as well. So that was very smart. Up the zone, tone down on the man defense, and give your team a best shot. And that's what we saw. And it'll be very interesting to see what kind of defense they're going to implement against New Orleans this time around. It'll be at home at least, so they don't have to worry about traveling to that track meet at the Superdome. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how are they going to balance out their defensive schemes of man coverage versus zone against Drew Brees in that offense.
Yeah, and Drew Brees is already aging, and the Saints are 1-2. They lost 2 straight. Wow. Kickoffs at 1 on Fox at Ford Field Sunday. I mean, they played close games through the first 3 weeks. This upcoming game might be another close one as well. So we're going to go ahead and go straight to that. Ed, any analysis on the Saints?
My analysis, first and foremost, you mentioned how they've had their struggles this year. It's going to be even more so when you consider the fact that Jared Cook and Michael Thomas, 2 key offensive weapons, are questionable. Now, I'm not saying they're out, but they did return to practice on a limited basis this week. Let's see. I think it was Thomas who's dealing with an ankle injury. I'm not sure about what type of injury that Cook has, but still, 2 key important pieces. We've seen how tight ends have given the Lions problems over the years. So it'll be very imperative for them to have at least one of between Jared Cook and or Michael Thomas for the offense. As for the defense, no Marshawn Lattimore, no Janoris Jenkins. So I think this could be another opportunity for Stafford and AD and the offense to get a better rhythm, better groove going. That hopefully this time you would see end with more touchdowns as opposed to field goals. Now, injuries on our end, Desmond Trufant, he's still listed as questionable. He had missed the last 2 games, I believe. He was listed as questionable for this week. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if he's going to be well rested or healthy enough to come back, but we'll see. It was good at least to see Kenny Golladay make his return, so I expect a more diet of Golladay getting plays drawn up for him this week as well, especially when you consider the fact that the Saints may be without some key contributors on defense themselves, whether it be Marshawn Lattimore or Janoris Jenkins. That's 2 guys, that's 2 starters in their secondary that they could be without. So if you're Detroit, you may want to take advantage of that, especially the fact knowing that you have Adrian Peterson doing the job that he's done so far. Like, it's been 2-3 games, but the Lions have already averaged, as a team, over 100 yards rushing, which is something that I don't remember seeing being mentioned or talked about as a stat for this team in a long time. They can do a little bit better in terms of stopping the run, which I think is going to be a very important key in this game, because I think the team that runs the ball better will have a better chance at winning this game, because I think Brees has not been his usual self. Like you mentioned, Taylor, he may in fact well be aging, but he's still Drew Brees. He's still a future Hall of Famer, and he still deserves respect in terms of game planning around to see what he can do, knowing the weapons that he has, and the IQ and the awareness that he has as well. So I could see this being a back-and-forth game going either way. Would it surprise me if the Lions lost? No. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they get it done by let's go 31-28 score. Prater gets another field goal. I don't know if it's going to be a game-winning run or a late fourth-quarter one, but I say, well, you know what? 2 field goals. So let's go 34-28 Detroit.
All right. So, that's going to be a close one. Like I said before, the Lions have beaten the Saints at Ford Field not once but twice. Yeah, both times they were with Jim Caldwell. Let's see how Matt Patricia fares at home against those Saints. All right, so Frank, now it's finally your turn. Sorry we had to make you wait up for 20-plus minutes. But anyway, what were your thoughts on the Cardinals game and Okudah's interception? And what do you look at in your crystal ball with the Saints?
Well, since I was actually off work this Sunday, and thanks for taking a little bit of personal time, I actually got to watch the Lions and Cardinals. And I'll say this about Jeff Okudah. I mean, he kind of went from being the 0 last week against Green Bay to being more of a hero. And that tells me that not only can he play his position well, but he's also got a short memory as well. He didn't let his bad performance of getting beat constantly get him down. He rebounded, got his first career interception. And you know what? That's probably going to be the first of many for him. And then I think maybe teams are going to probably respect him a lot more. We'll see if they continue to throw his way or not. And as for the win, I mean, I'm not going to get overly excited about it because we have seen a lot of this before. But, you just, like I said with the Tigers, sometimes you just got to take the good whenever you can get it. And as for this upcoming game against the Saints, I'm also in the camp that believes Father Time is catching up with Drew Brees as he's well into his 40s. And, of course, they may not have Michael Thomas and Jared Cook, although I've heard Thomas could possibly be back this week. But the one guy who really strikes fear into you is Alvin Kamara, their running back, not just as a runner, but he's probably the best pass-catching running back in the NFL these days. So I'm interested to see if the Lions play a lot more zone to try and slow him down, or if they play man. If I think they play man, they're probably asking for a lot of trouble. This is honestly a game I wouldn't be surprised what happens I wouldn't be surprised if they lose it, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they win, because this isn't the New Orleans Saints from the Super Bowl year or anything like that. And as Ed mentioned, they're going to be without two of their starting corners in Marshawn Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins. So I think that's possibly going to open these up for Stafford to throw the ball around a little bit to Kenny Galladay.
And Hawkinson, too.
Yeah, and also T.J. Hawkinson, who I think he's having a much better sophomore campaign than his rookie year, from what I've noticed.
It helps that he hasn't gotten injured, too.
That is very true.
As of right now.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I kind of had to flip a coin on this one. So, after flipping said coin, I'm going to go with the Lions win 28-24 in a pretty close game.
Yeah, both Ed and Frank picked the Lions. Ed picks the Lions by 6, 34-28. Frank picks the Lions 28-24. I'm going to go even closer. The Lions are going to win again, let's say 30-28. So, we all picked the Lions to win because they just seem to get it done in close games against the Saints like they did the last two games. And they even beat the Saints on the road once as of late the past few years. And the Superdome.
I think they got it at least one of those was on a Monday nighter.
Yeah, on a Monday night, yeah. Oh, yeah, make that twice, actually. They beat the Saints twice on the road the last few years. That's right. One of them was on a Monday night. So, yeah, there's that, like Ed just mentioned. So there you go. So that is Lions. Now we go to the Tigers. What are they going to do in the offseason with Lloyd McClendon now that their regular season is finally over with? That's just one question that I had in mind. Ed, we'll start with you, and then we'll turn over to Frank. Ed, go right ahead.
Entirely sure, because it seems, compared to what we saw with the team in general, I think Lloyd did the best that he could taking over for a team that, in terms of Rob Gardenhire was in way over his head, let's be honest. As evident the fact that he took his ball and went home right before the season even ended, which is interesting to say the least. I would have figured maybe that, listen, this is probably going to be your last year anyway, and you're not going anywhere. Just finish out the season at least. But hey, it's his perspective, it's his prerogative. He had his own reasons, so I'm not going to bash the guy for that. I mean, what's the point? This isn't like some type of Bobby Petrino situation where he gave him his word and everything, and then he stuck out on in the middle of the night. No, Ron probably had his own personal and legitimate, in his view, reasons for wanting to leave before the season ended. So props to him, or more power to him, I should say. No, he shouldn't have been hired in the first place. But, hey, it is what it is. As for Lloyd, I'm kind of a little bit surprised, but not too surprised to see how he is that last stalwart from the previous era of the unfulfilled generation, because I still remember the coaches that we had from between Leland, Lamont, and Lloyd. That was like the 3 L's, right? So it's quite interesting to see that he is the last one that's still standing from that group, so to speak, in essence. Maybe that was done out as a favor to Al Avila and the Illich family for all those years and everything. But I could see a point to where if they want to bring him back, or if he wants to come back, they'll have no problem doing it. And what role of capacity, maybe back to where he was because it was just done as an interim emergency basis. I don't see Lloyd McClendon obviously being the full-term manager or full-time manager for the Tigers next year. I think it'll be somebody else. As to who it might be, I really have no clue, because if I had the proper faith in the front office in terms of getting this done and finding the right guy with the right search, I would be telling you that, but I do not. So as to where things could be happening, we may still be in limbo another 2-3 years from now, depending on how this hire goes.
Yeah, definitely. Frank, what say you on Lloyd McClendon?
I mean, he pretty much did all he could with what was there, which wasn't much to begin with. But again, if it was up to me, I wouldn't give him the full-time managerial gig. I'd bring somebody else in, but as for who that is, I'm really not sure. And do we really trust this front office to go out and make a quality hire? Because I know I don't, Ed. I know you said you didn't either. So who knows where this is going to go? We may be in limbo for a pretty long time. So I guess it's pretty much just wait and see where it goes from here, who they bring in, if they bring Lloyd back or if they bring somebody else. I know the Red Sox just let go of their manager. His last name escapes me. I know his first name was Ron, but he was only managing because Alex Cora got popped for the Houston Astros cheating scandal. So who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Ron Reineke, I believe is his name.
Yep. I think you might have nailed it on the nose, Frank. So, anyway, that's Tigers. Ready for the exciting news about the Red Wings, guys? Oh, man, this you may want to hear. They acquired defenseman Marc Staal and a 2021 second-round draft pick from the New York Rangers for undisclosed future considerations. And they also released 2 defensemen, Jonathan Ericsson and Trevor Daley.
Thank
about damn
God.
time.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah, especially Jonathan Ericsson. GTFO out of here, man.
Oh. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Do you know how long we've been clamoring, or at the very least for Ericsson to get the hell up out of here? And finally, it is done. Oh my goodness. One less corpse I have to see on the ice.
Yeah. One less corpse that could not defend in his own zone at all, may I add.
It's nothing personal against the guy. It was not performing efficiently or even well as to what his position requires him to do. So, you've shown loyalty. You've been here for a good enough time, but at some point, man, you got to produce. If you ain't giving those results, you got to go.
Right, because you're not doing your job, Jonathan Ericsson.
Let's not forget that, as you mentioned, Trevor Daley, gone as well. So
thank goodness.
Finally, Steve is starting to... This is why Steve is here. He's not going to bring back guys who didn't produce. So those are 2 gone. And also, we need to mention, it's probably 99.999% sure that Jimmy Howard is not going to be back. Now, fellas, the reason I'm bringing this up is the question now becomes, who does Steve possibly bring in as a free agent goaltender, as there is someone who just came onto the market, and that's Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers after they just bought him
that's
out.
Better.
Now,
let me touch on Jimmy Howard first.
Yeah,
you touched on it. Jimmy Howard told Elliot Friedman a week and a half ago on Sportsnet that Howard probably won't be re-signed by the Wings, but doesn't plan to retire. My question is, how is any other team going to want to sign him to any kind of contract? He may be done soon anyway with hockey.
Thing is, though, teams are always going to need a backup goaltender of some kind, even if it's for some emergency purposes. It's like what Dallas, they had essentially a walk-on backup goaltender be one of their key contributors of this latest Cup run. So it's not impossible.
Right.
Now, as for Jimmy, though, I will say, kind of expected, but it's still bittersweet, because I had the long-standing belief is, a decade ago, we had Whippy 10 years that I could have foresaw this team potentially getting to the promised land and winning a Stanley Cup with him as our goaltender. I thought we had a good chance in terms of that series of coming back down 3-0 against the Sharks. We had a damn good chance against the Blackhawks 2013 before he choked that 3-1 lead. But I always felt that Jimmy didn't get enough credit, considering the fact that there was moments where we absolutely needed him to be that brick wall for us, and he absolutely delivered. But in regards to overall, I think the time may have come. And if this is the end, I would say thank you, Jimmy. But, we got to move on. Now, the fact that I've heard you brought up, Frank, the name Henrik Lundqvist, that does have me interested. I don't know if it's going to be for a 1-year deal or a minimum vet deal or something like that. But at the very least, I want, like we saw with Staal, like we saw with Val Fippula, like we saw with the other players and moves that Yzerman has made. You want to bring in these older veterans, not so much in terms of saying, this could be a guy we could upgrade. Like, this could be also someone we could use for depth purposes, filling out our roster, and most importantly, have that mentor for our younger players, our youth, our next generation to look up to ask questions, to learn from, take guidance and advice from. Because guess what? In a couple years' time, it's going to be their turn, their show, their team to run and to lead. And when you have guys like Dylan Larkin, like Anthony Mantha, like Tyler Bertuzzi, so many others, I could go on with the young guys, the young guns that we have here. You need that veteran experience to learn from, so that way when it's your time to lead, your time to shine, you know exactly what to do, or you at least have a better general idea of what you can do to the best of your ability. So I have no problem with these moves, and especially the fact that we're getting rid of corpses like Jonathan Ericsson, and also we're getting second-round picks for next year. Yes, sign me up for that. I have always, you want to call it a sheepish to optimistic, cautiously optimistic approach, but I've been saying it for a while. I'm going to keep saying it. Trust in the Yzer plan. It may sound like a knockoff of the process, but guess what? Look what we just saw the Tampa Bay Lightning just done, what they've just accomplished. Okay,
they won the Stanley Cup.
Thank you. With Yzerman's fingerprints all over that thing. So if you mean to tell me that's going to take a 3, 4, 5, maybe 6-year journey, I'm good. I've got no problem waiting. I've got 4 cups in my lifetime that I can look back on fondly anyway. So really, in that regard, I'm full. I'm satisfied. Now, if Yzerman is going to bring home at least one more cup for me to see using this iteration, this plan, and in this method, then it further raises and elevates his status as a legend, not just within throughout the sport, but especially within the Detroit community as well, considering that he brought us a title as a player, and now he would have hypothetically brought us one as an executive. So, again, I'm saying trust the Yzer plan. I even put it as a hashtag, the Yzer plan. Trust it, because I do believe, knowing what we know, seeing what we saw Tampa just do, the year or so after that Yzerman left the job to come back home, knowing his fingerprints, his DNA was all over the core and the blueprint of what built that team into what they are now today, which is Stanley Cup champions. I do believe that we're going to see the Red Wings get back to that status of where they deserve sooner rather than later. It could be 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, but I do believe since you have the right guy at the forefront leading your operation, leading your plans, then I do believe that that's a spot we're going to get back to one day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we should trust in the Yzer plan. And those moves are just the beginning. The releasings of Ericsson and Daley and the trade for Marc Staal and that 2021 second-round draft pick.
Bringing back Fabry the way he did.
Yeah, Robbie Fabry. Yeah, he was signed to an extension. They also got to get rid of Darren Helm. Yeah, Jimmy Howard's going to be next, of course. But Darren Helm, his contract, 4 years, signed in 2016. That was an extension. That's already up. He's going to get the heave-ho.
Not to mention the fact that when you sign Staal or trade for Staal, whatever, he has an expiring deal. So even if you don't want to bring it back next year, that's fine. It's a 1-year rental. That's dead money coming off of your books either way.
Yeah.
So I would have done that move 10 out of 10 times. So good on Yzerman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what I really think it was bringing Marc Staal in was, I think it may have also been kind of taking on some salary in order to acquire assets like that second-round pick in 2021. That's part of the whole Yzer plan for rebuilding the team and getting them back to prominence. Now, as for next steps in that, I mean, I was mentioning Henrik Lundqvist as someone to possibly bring in maybe for a year or 2 tops. I mean, granted, he's not prime Henrik Lundqvist from the early part of the decade where he got to a Stanley Cup final and was in a conference final as well. But I think maybe bring someone in to be a mentor to the younger goalies in the farm system, like Philippe Larson or Caden Fulcher or whoever else is down there. But I also, you have to consider that Jonathan Bernier is going into the final year of his deal. Plus, you really got to get these younger goalies developed, and I'd say what better way to help them develop than bring in one of the best guys to ever play the game in Lundqvist to kind of teach them. I think Ed kind of hit on that. And also, he mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning bringing the Stanley Cup with a lot of the work Yzerman did, a lot of the signings he made, a lot of the trades he made, a lot of the players he drafted. There could very well come a day where the Red Wings do get there, and we just have to keep trusting in that. So let's just keep doing that and see what happens. And also, the NHL draft is coming up next week as well. And one more signing I do want to hit on real quick. They did re-sign Sam Gagner to a one-year deal.
Right.
I didn't happen to see what the annual average on that one was, Taylor. I don't know if you did.
I'll bet it was small.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? That's a
veteran.
I think that's a very good low-risk move, too. I mean, he was actually somewhat productive when he came in. I think possibly he could do that again, and you know what? Come trade deadline, if you're not in the postseason and you want to sell him off, you do that and you get a draft pick in return for him. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly okay. I mean, because I remember last year when people were saying, oh, Steve's just doing stuff that Ken Holland would do. No. Steve is bringing in veterans only on short-term deals, so it gives them a chance to say, hey, show me what you can do, and then when the time is right, you move them on and get assets in return. Unlike the predecessor who would just sign up to 6-year deals and say, hey, we need to spend money and hand out no-trade clauses like candy. But
right.
That's another topic for another time.
Well, it's already a topic that's already been mentioned, so that
Yes.
doesn't even need to be saved.
Yes.
And the point about this is the fan base of this Red Wings team has to look at the exact details of those contracts and compare them to the contracts like for Abdelkader, Nielsen, and Helm and such that Ken Holland signed compared to the short-term deals that Steve Yzerman signed for Sam Gagner and Robbie Fabry and such.
Exactly. He didn't have to overpay. He didn't have to overcommit.
Right, like Ken Holland did.
That's what kept sending the team back for years and years, because you're locking up all this money and you're essentially locking up a roster spot to a player that necessarily doesn't quite deserve it or isn't that good enough to live up to that caliber of contract.
Right, so there you go. Now for the buyout stuff, and guys, this is a long one from the Hockey Writers. You're going to have to bear with me on this one. It headlines from Devin Little of the Hockey Writers, the Red Wings don't need to buy anyone out. This is a bold headline here. As of today, September 25th, the buyout window is open across the NHL. Already, we've got some action courtesy of the Ottawa Senators from Darren Dreger on Twitter at Darren Dreger. Expect the Ottawa Senators to place Bobby Ryan on waivers for the purpose of a buyout. Despite winning the Masterson Trophy this year for his perseverance and dedication to hockey, the Senators could no longer stomach carrying his $7.25 million cap hit. Like their division rivals, the Detroit Red Wings have a couple contracts on their books that aren't pretty, to say the least. Speculation is bound to run rampant as to whether or not the Red Wings will move to rid themselves of these deals. However, a buyout does not completely remove the situation. In fact, we need to establish how buyouts work before we can accurately decide whether or not the Red Wings should exercise a buyout. The most basic thing to keep in mind when considering a buyout is this. The team executing a buyout will retain a hit to their salary cap for twice the amount of time that was remaining on the deal. For example, if a contract has 2 years left at the time of a buyout, then the team will carry a cap hit for 4 years. Wow. At a reduced rate, of course. How do you determine what that elongated cap hit will be? If the player is over the age of 26 at that time of the buyout, then the cost of the buyout will be 2/3 of the remaining value on the contract. Under the age of 26 costs the team 1/3 of the remaining value. From there, you spread out that cost evenly over the length of the buyout. You then subtract that cost from the player's salary. Finally, you subtract that total from the player's overall cap hit to determine the reduced cap hit. In the summer of 2016, the Red Wings acquired some cap space by trading Pavel Datsyuk's contract to the Arizona Coyotes, may I add. Then they used the savings to sign center Frans Nielsen to a 6-year deal worth $31.5 million. With a cap hit of $5.25 million, 5 in the corner in other words, he was signed to hold down the center spot on the team's second line. Nielsen provided solid depth scoring in the first 3 seasons of the deal, but his performance really fell off during the 2019-2020 season. he recorded just 9 points in 60 games while also averaging 13 and 41 in ice time. 13 minutes and 41 seconds, the lowest since he first broke into the league with the New York Islanders. What's worse is that the defensive game that earned him many Selke votes over the years seemed to disappear entirely. So in other words, guys, as I pause right there, Nielsen is starting to decline. Even he may be aging as well. Continuing on, by all accounts, Nielsen is one of those savvy veterans that help in the locker room of a rebuilding team. This is evidenced by the A on his sweater. But at what point would the rebuild be better served by inserting a younger face in Nielsen's place? If the Red Wings were to exercise a buyout on Nielsen, they would get an immediate salary relief of $1.83 million. The following year, they would get $833,333 in salary relief. With 2 years left on his deal, the buyout would extend it another 2 years, with the Red Wings taking on a $666,667 cap hit in those 2 years. Nielsen isn't the only buyout candidate in Detroit, though. In fact, should the Red Wings exercise a buyout, this next candidate is hands down the crowd favorite. In November of 2015, winger Justin Abdelkader signed a 7-year extension worth $29.75 million. Thanks a lot, Ken Holland, dork. While a $4.25 million cap hit on its own isn't that restrictive, it's his lack of production that makes this contract such an eyesore for fans. And everybody knows this as well, like they should. Since the extension kicked in, Abdelkader has recorded 78 points in 259 games. That's proof for you, including just 3 points in 49 games the past season. His average ice time of 11 minutes and 32 seconds this season was the lowest since his first full season in the NHL, the 2009-2010 campaign. He's a player that is meant to bring the intensity to the Red Wings lineup while also providing an example for the team's younger players. He also wears an A on his jersey. For what reason, may I add? There are 3 years left on Abdelkader's deal. He and Dylan Larkin are the only players the team has signed past the 2021-2022 season. If the Red Wings were to buy Abdelkader out, they would carry his contract on the books for another 6 years. Wow. In the additional years, the Red Wings would carry a cap hit of a little over $1 million. The Red Wings have cap space this offseason, almost $35 million before re-signing guys like Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi. Once that business is taken care of and the team figures out their goalie situation, they should still have plenty of financial flexibility. A closer look at the Red Wings salary situation can be found here. Following the 2020-2021 season, the Red Wings are poised to receive an additional $23.3 million in cap space. Essentially, their salary cap situation is finally healing, thanks to Steve Yzerman, may I add, and it looks like it's only going to get better. So if the Red Wings aren't hurting for cap space, why would they pull the trigger on a buyout? Let's get this out of the way right now. The Red Wings should not use a buyout on Abdelkader. Keeping that contract on the books for an additional 3 years should make any fans sick to their mouth, and the $1 million penalty for doing so could actually come back to bite the organization. How so? Well, by the time the Red Wings start getting hit by that penalty, they should hopefully be on their way up from the basement. All of their top prospects will be off of their entry-level deals, meaning they're going to get paid real money. The Red Wings will also have to give a raise to Larkin while also paying any free agents they may have signed between now and then. While $1 million isn't a ton in terms of the salary cap, it could very well be the difference between keeping a player and seeing them leave for greener pastures. This Abdelkader contract has done enough damage, probably more than enough, in my eyes at least. The Red Wings shouldn't give it the chance to do any more harm. That being said, there is an argument to be made for buying out Nielsen. Extending his deal from 2 years to 4 years doesn't sound that great until you realize the Red Wings will only get hit with a $666,667 strike against their cap during those extra 2 years. That's less than the minimum salary for an NHL player. But the real argument for buying him out isn't about money. It's about creating an opportunity. Perhaps the biggest benefactor of a potential Nielsen buyout is the Red Wings' top pick in the 2017 draft, Michael Rasmussen, who was loaned overseas to Austria, may I add. Yeah, there's another headline for you guys. Despite the latter being drafted as a center, he hasn't been able to gather experience at the position in the NHL because the Red Wings have an abundance of centers on their roster already, including Nielsen. A buyout would not only create an opportunity for Rasmussen, but first-round pick Joe Veleno as well. Both are natural centers, though both can play on the wing as well. If the Red Wings are looking to establish their center group of the future, it would behoove them to give their top center prospects the opportunity to play sooner rather than later. Rasmussen, in particular, could really use the NHL reps. The Red Wings have not utilized a buyout since they parted ways with defenseman Xavier Ouellet in the summer of 2018. Before that, the team bought out center Stephen Weiss, and they still have a $1.67 million cap penalty because of it. The last time Weiss played for the Red Wings was the spring of 2015. Long time ago, huh? Buyouts are useful if they're used under the right circumstances. Removing dead weight off of the roster is a good reason, but the cost needs to make sense. In some cases, the cure can do more damage than the disease. Now that the Red Wings' cap situation isn't as bleak as it was before, they can afford to wait out their worst contracts. That's why they don't need to exercise a buyout. However, they also need to ensure that opportunities and roster spots are available for those that deserve them. General Manager Steve Yzerman is known for making bold decisions. This year's buyout window could very well show how he earned that reputation. So to recap here as we turn it over to Ed and then Frank, as usual, the headline may sound like a lazy take on the Red Wings offseason, but it did point out some exact facts. Still, Yzerman has a pretty long job to do. In this case, they have to buy out Abdelkader and Nielsen to get the rebuild on the right track. So, Ed, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen the beginning stages. The fact that they got rid of Ericsson, they got rid of Daley, amongst other players. They may be very well getting rid of Jimmy Howard. They may very well be getting rid of Darren Helm. It's a process of elimination, phasing out the players that you know you're not going to need anymore so that you can get the players that you want in now. You know, I was not a fan of that Abdelkader deal when it went down. Way too much money and time for a adequate player at best, mediocre on most days. And I thought, yeah, I get it, local boy and all that, but still, way too much money. So for Abdelkader's sake, unless he really shows out, yeah, I could definitely see him being on that proverbial chopping block sooner than later as well. And you know, this is all just a part of what you need in terms of getting rebuilds properly done and properly started. It can't be stop starting, or kicking the can down the road. It's called, if you have a course of action, you need to stay with and stick with that course. You can't keep veering off and making different routes on that path. You need one straight, narrow path to be as focused as you can possibly be with making moves and making a complete overhaul and makeover and change to the design of what your team wants to be going forward.
Right. So, Frank, what do you make of all this? I'm pretty sure you know a lot about hockey and the salary cap as well, so take the floor, if you will.
Well, after reading this article, I definitely have to agree that Steve needs to use the buyout on Frans Nielsen more so than Justin Abdelkader, because as you mentioned, Taylor, they'll create some space, having to pay only 2/3 of the deal for the remaining 2 years, and then only carry a $666,000 and change penalty, which is less than an entry-level deal. So you consider that. I think that's the move Steve's going to have to make next. I mean, some could say buy out Darren Helm, but he's only in the final year of his deal. And Justin Abdelkader, I would say, if you want to get rid of him, I'd say make a deal with the Seattle Kraken and say, hey, we'll let you take him off our hands, but it'll probably have to cost one of those second-round picks that he acquired or something else. So I think that's what he'll end up having to do. And kind of like Ed said, it's a process. It's going to have to happen. It's not going to happen all in just one day. Back to contending status, it's going to take time. But you know what? Steve's earned my trust enough where I think he'll do the right thing, and we'll see what he does next.
Definitely. So, it's time for a closing statement segment, guys. Ed, we'll let you take the floor with your closing statement, and then Frank will be next, followed by me, of course. Ed, go right ahead.
My closing statement for this week would be in regards to what we see, the winds of change. We've noticed that the seasons have been making their change, not just with the weather, but also with our teams. The Tigers are once again going to be undergoing another change at the guard, so to speak, in terms of who's going to be leading them as manager. The Red Wings are undergoing a season of change for themselves as well. The Lions are a constant season of change in terms of mood, getting up hopes and expectations, delivering on said expectations. And I think even the Pistons as well, considering where they may end up with this draft and other pieces going forward. It's all about using not just what's around you, but being aware of the winds of change that's coming, so that way you be better prepared for what may happen or what may fall out. And I say that as well, considering the fact that in this climate, in this world, in this year that we have been through it and we have witnessed and experienced, winds of change has been a constant theme I've felt and I feel. So in that regard, I will say, in that end, use this as motivation to help get you with whatever strife, whatever has been doubting you this whole entire way, and don't let it deter you, but overcome it. Winds of change is here, and if you're not aware, then you're going to be part of the winds that's blown away. So I say that by closing by saying this: vote, register the vote, check on your status, check on your ballot, because the winds of change is definitely here.
God, I can hardly wait. Frank, your closing statement.
My closing statement is as follows, and I've said it here a few times, and Ed said it as well. We as Red Wings fans have to continue to trust the Yzer plan, and we've seen it played out a lot more. The move from Marc Staal, and also choosing not to bring back Jonathan Ericsson and Trevor Daley. And look, we're seeing that take effect. Because we all know that his predecessor would probably not do anything close to that. But I'll just conclude by saying, trust the Yzer plan. Things will be better. It'll take time. But we saw what the Yzer plan did in Tampa and what it led to. So those days will come. Just have patience.
Yes. My closing statement, of course, like I mentioned before, Red Wings fans, you have to look at the details of each contract signed by Ken Holland and Steve Yzerman. Compare the past to the present. The winds of change, like Ed mentioned before, are coming. So, excellent job, guys, as always. We'll talk next week. Hopefully have Darren Weiss back. He was out due to work complications, but I'm almost sure he'll join us. Let's just make sure of that.
I'm looking forward to meeting and hearing from Darren. I want to get his analysis, his takes, and his output as well, because we're a group, we're a unit, and I definitely want to see what he brings to the table.
Well, you will like him a lot, Ed. I can say that for a fact. He was a pleasure to have on.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. You guys take care and stay safe.
Thanks.
You
and
too,
we'll be back next week. Fred Smith and Frank Vasner on behalf of Darren Weiss. This is Taylor Phillips signing off. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Stables Media. And remember, the truth is out there. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. And with a Hein, we rest our case. Stay safe.